Hi, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Building a Harmonious Family with Meaghan Jackson. And if you're a parent and you are working from home now during pandemic, we had a lot of struggles with homeschooling your children, parenting, struggling with, help them do the homework and achieving our goals. Please make sure to listen this episode because my guest is Meaghan Jackson, and she's coming to us from Canada. And she's a gentle parenting coach and a mother of three who has been for many years homeschooling her boys and working from home, building her business. So welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. And I'm super excited about this topic because many parents need to hear this. They need different tips. And I'm sure you will give us a lot of value. But before that, I would love to hear a little bit more personal story of your journey, you becoming a parent. How was your story? Where were you before? And how did that go? And how did it lead to where you are today as a coach?
Yeah, that was quite a journey. Before I had kids, I was first an engineer, and then I was a science teacher at a private school. And I did what every, teachers, parents around do. I figured I'd have my kids 2 years apart. I'd go on maternity leave. I'd come back and I'd just be like everyone else. No, kids have a way of completely changing everything. And I'm so thankful they do, because they really help you to see yourself in a whole new way. My first child was born, and he's a very sensitive child. He's a highly sensitive child. And I just knew right off that sending him to school and daycare, he needed more time to figure out who he was and to have a little more support. So I ended up staying home with my children. I have the two older boys, and we were running a home daycare for a while. I was helping with grow our family business for a while as well. In between all that, I had a miscarriage, and that was really hard on us because I still had to parent and heal and grieve. But we kind of moved forward, and then surprise, we had a third child. So there's a big age gap there. And after him, by then, my boys were getting older. We were well into deciding that we really liked having them home, and we felt that homeschooling was a good option for them. There's always so many reasons you want to choose that route. But for us, part of it was our faith, and part of it was having been a teacher, and I knew what schools were like and just the structure that teachers need to have in place in the classroom. My boys were not the fit for that situation. It's just, they didn't fit the mold of what would go well for them in school. And since I felt confident, we were homeschooling at the time. And then I had a third miscarriage. And I think that's when everything changed. By then I had the three boys, I had the business. I was at the end of myself. I was really struggling as a parent and just as a person inside with all the stress, all the overwhelm that was going on. But there's no pause button in life. There's no way to stop and fix everything and heal and then move forward. You have to keep going when you have kids. You can't stop. And other people were starting to notice. And that's when it really hit home, when other people were saying, things aren't going well, you need help. So I bravely reached out for help, and I got a parenting coach, and I joined some different groups, and I read all the books, and I worked really hard on myself. And the transformation was incredible. The way our family works, who I was, how confident I felt. When something great happens to you, you can't sit on it. Like you got to share it with the world. I was like, all these things, all these strategies, how does no one else know about this? I need to tell people. And I also decided right then I wanted to be the support that I had needed most when I was struggling most. I wanted to offer that to other people because I knew where they were coming from. Everything that I had gone through wasn't going to go to waste. I was going to use that to bless others. And so I became a parenting coach, and it's been a wonderful journey ever since.
Wow, what a story. And those ups and downs really build us who we are. And it's always a road for us. We just don't know where we're going to reach, and we never have the end goal. Actually, it's constant growth. But I love your story. So I would love to know, first of all, how was it for you to reach out to get help? Because a lot of parents, a lot of people might recognize, some of them, me as a coach, working with some families, some mothers come to me, but they financially depend on the husband, and the husband might say, oh, you're fine. Like they're anxious, they feel depressed, but the husband is fine. You're fine. You're a good mother. You don't need the coach. What is this, right? So I respect everyone's opinion, but how was it for you? Did you have that support from your husband? And how was it to just break through? Because maybe some people listening, they want to reach out for help, but they're like afraid, because we have those fears to really admit and ask. It's the biggest step to do it, actually.
That's a really great question, because all those different things were going through my head. At the time, finances were a big issue. And so I kept trying to think, okay, the way I actually found the first parenting coach I took, I found the cheapest one with the biggest value. I looked online at like 20 different courses, and I didn't even care what they were teaching me. It was what bonuses, what freebies, what am I going to get, and how much do I have to pay? Because I wanted I wanted something that looked like I was going to get like a great deal. And I mean, it was a good class. I'm not saying. I also checked out the library, because I was like, all these free books, I'll just buy every parenting, read every book. That's where I went wrong. And that's why I want to help other parents, because it was too much information. Mm-hmm. It was too much overload. It was too many different points of view. And I had so much work to do, doing all that reading, understanding it. There was no one to ask. The online course I took, there was no check-in. I had no one to talk to about it. It was do it at your own pace, which means I had to motivate myself to keep going, hold myself accountable. And there was one call that I could submit a question to and hope that she picked mine from all the thousands of people. So it was that level of, I needed some accountability. I needed someone to actually talk to, and I needed someone to sort through all the piles of books and tell me what would actually apply to my family. Luckily, I had more options, because I realized, I jumped into the cheapest option, and I recognized quickly, I've got it for free. I've got the program, but I need more. I needed more help to make real changes. Luckily, I had a friend who was a parenting coach, or was running a support group. And so I felt comfortable going with someone I had some experience with. So I joined her support group. It wasn't specifically on parenting, but just anybody that was already running some kind of program. And then the one-on-one coach I did that's when I realized, and I told my husband, look, I'm sorry if this is spending more money, but I need some accountability. I need some motivation. Like, I'm paying you, I'm going to do the homework to show up and talk to somebody. I'm going to actually do the work because someone's checking in on me. Yes. And he said, I get it. He understood, and he said, look, whatever you need to feel better as a mom, to do better for our kids, you do what you feel is best. You've done the research, do what you have to. And so again, I went with I actually didn't know the person, but I knew the method she was using, the organization. So it's always that like, know, and trust. Like, I knew her, I knew of the method, and I was just going to trust this person that they could get me further along. So it was a combination. And I always wish that someone had just jumped in and said, skip half the money you spent on things that weren't going to work because you're trying to be cheap, and get someone to hold you accountable, to give you all the information that's right for your family. And they'll point you, parenting coaches, we're not afraid to point you to the right book. Yeah. I mean, not in a competition. If there's a book that I think will help you, I'll point it out. Yeah. But it was someone who would know which books instead of me reading everything.
So many information you said here. First, really the overload of information I see parents going through and different approaches, different opinions. So I always tell them you have to develop the ability to trust your own decision. And like you said, what works for your family. And the second thing that you mentioned was, having the coach one-on-one. I always tell people the results are not in 1 hour session. They're in between the session on what you apply and what you change in your life, no matter what kind of coach you have. It can be from parenting, business, family, relationship. So you have to do the work, what they tell you. And this is where the coaching, when you go into a program, this is what brings you change, when you apply things and you change. And for the cheap stuff, I would just make a metaphor, right? When we want to buy shoes, we're like, well, I'm not going to spend a lot of money. Like, why would I give $200 for shoes? I will buy $20. And then they torn with a couple of weeks. And then you buy a second one, the third one. So you just keep on buying instead of buying one good product that's going to last, that's going to be comfortable and give you the results you want, right? Offer you that. You just end spending money and not getting what you want. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And some of it you learn by mistake, but if I can help someone else avoid that, that's my goal.
Excellent. So tell us some tips. What was the biggest breakthrough? What was the first thing that opened your mind when you started working with a coach? What was something that was like the biggest, thing maybe at that time? I know everyone have different breakthroughs, depends where they are, but what was it for you? What was it for you when you really had like the aha moment? Like, oh, wow. What was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think the biggest aha moment for me, because for me, my starting point was just feeling really low about myself and my parenting, and I felt like a failure. And just having this, recognizing that I have worth. Like I as a human have worth, and that I'm good, and having more empathy for myself. It was holding myself gently and say, you're going through a hard time. You're trying, you're learning, you're doing your best. And giving myself the empathy really motivated me to keep trying instead of just always shaming and blaming myself and feeling like a failure. So I think mindset was just huge breakthrough for me, and allowed me to have hope that, okay, things could get better. I'm making these tiny, small steps forward. So that was my biggest aha moment, was I'm worthy, and we can do this. We're just going to keep trying. The next one was just shifting my whole thinking about parenting from focusing on trying to get my kids to behave to focusing on, this is a long-term relationship and I want to build on the relationship. The other stuff will come because they'll want to behave because they like me.
Exactly. I love how you said it. So let's talk a little bit. I will ask you for some tips and strategies, but before that, you chose to homeschool your boys before pandemic. So it was already a process for you. So how was it different? What challenges did you have? And how do you think, because during pandemic, a lot of parents were forced to it. They're not trained. They had no idea. Now they had overload of work at the same time. But how was it for you? What was different before pandemic, homeschooling them? And what changes did pandemic brought? And what do you think, what challenges brought for other parents?
Yeah, the biggest shift we saw was just the social aspect. Homeschoolers get out and socialize their kids so much more than people assume. The biggest question everyone always has when you say you're going to homeschool is, what about socialization? Your kids aren't in school all day seeing other kids. And it's so wrong. We were out every day of the week because there's programs in the community. There's other homeschoolers. There's places to visit, cool stuff to do. And all of that was taken away. So that was just really hard for us. I had to work a lot on mental health with my children and make that a priority, caring for ourselves and not stressing as much about the schoolwork, which we got done anyways because they were in a good place mentally, and then being creative about finding ways to still connect with other people. And I think that was a lot for parents to really make this shift, was all of a sudden their kids are home and they're worrying so much about the schoolwork, recognizing that that the emotions were big and that everyone was struggling. And I think as time went on, everybody, like society, was realizing, wait a second, we got to focus on our mental health and how everyone's handling this more than the worrying so much about the academics.
Yeah, it's so true. So can you give us now, for all the listeners, you are building your business, you help your husband run his business as well, and you homeschool 3 boys at different age groups. So what are some like golden tips you can give all the parents listening about homeschooling, especially now if they're forced, and balancing that with their work? So what was the biggest, what helps you? What helps you and how you keep, sane with it?
Yeah, there's a couple really big ones. The first one is be proactive and have a plan. Don't be shocked. I mean, if you know that this is overwhelming, sit down with your calendar, write down what are your goals and priorities as a family. Right now, what is your main goal? If we're almost to the summer, is your goal just to get to summer? And so maybe academics isn't as much of a priority as figuring out how to not go crazy during the day. If your priority was, I have to work these certain hours, we got to figure out what you're doing during this time. Do you see what I mean? It depends on each family. What are your family's priorities? What's most important to you right now in this season? And write it down. Focus on your top 3 or 4 priorities right now. And the rest is nice to have. But when we try to focus on everything, it's just going to fall apart. The next suggestion is to really try to come up with a really good routine. Figure out when you have to be at work, who's going to be where, and where can we be flexible. For my family, because we're both my businesses are entrepreneurial, I have a bit more flexibility. But if right now I'm recording a podcast, I have to plan ahead and look at the calendar. This child needs to be watching a show because he's too young. The other 2 need to be set up with their schoolwork because they're independent. So work on having some kind of good routine or rhythm. And the third main one is take care of yourself. You cannot give when you're on empty. You cannot be your best. You cannot parent your best when you are completely overwhelmed. Most parents come to a coach because of something that they're dealing with their children. How do I get my child to listen? How do I get my child to behave? And then partway into it, you realize that, wow, most of parenting has to do with the parent themselves and how you're doing and the energy you're bringing into the relationship. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of, as a coach as well, working with families for many years, that was the big issue that it was always happening, having parents wanting to change their children. And I was very specific always and very direct about this, that the work we're going to do, it's not with the children, it's about them. And as they change, the children, everything that's happening is going to change around them. So tell us, Meaghan, how can people reach out to you? What programs do you have, and so on? We're going to make sure to put links in the description of this podcast so they can definitely go and check everything out. But I would love to hear it now from you.
So I'm actually just changing my website. I decided to step out from any company name and just come to you as myself, because you're all just searching up my name anyways. So it's meaghanjackson.ca. I have my own web domain, and you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Just search Meaghan Jackson. And if you have to look up Joyful Mud Puddles, that was the old one. There's probably a little more Google searching on that. I offer one-on-one coaching for parents who would like the more intense ongoing support. I also am just opening up a membership community. Rather than doing courses that are only offered certain times of the year, I wanted parents to be able to jump in and have access immediately to my parenting course, as well as the community aspect. And so we do group coaching and have a private community that way. Mm-hmm. And then for those who do want to just try jumping in with specific things, I do have a few online courses that are self-directed. You know, you can just do my emotion coaching course. I also have one specifically for children that I made with my boys. And so they're showing kids how to do all these breathing and things that we tell the kids to do. So my boys are actually demonstrating it. And that one's also an online course you can do on your own.
Wonderful. And you also run a podcast, if I'm right? Where can people hear you post it?
Forgot about that. Mine is the Parenting Coach podcast.
Wonderful, wonderful. So make sure to research Parenting Coach podcast and Meaghan Jackson. We're going to put the links here. Well, Meaghan, thank you so much for being here today, all the way from Canada. And do you have any final tip, anything else you would like to add for parents listening?
Yeah, my biggest mantra is always focus on connection before correction. You're in this for the long haul and you really want to have a closer relationship with your child. So focus on that. And then when you're calm, deal with what's actually going on behind the scenes and what you need to deal with.
I love this. Wonderful. Focus on connection before correction. I hope all of you got this and wrote it down. Make sure to connect with Meaghan. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for always listening. Make sure to download this episode, share with me and Meaghan, tag us in your stories if you enjoyed it, and reach out. And I will see you in the next one. Wishing you a wonderful day.